I think it's really important that you take space and make space. I think making your own voice very clear and known is super important and very impactful, but also leaving space to uplift other voices in the field is also just as impactful. Our team was quite small, so I had a hand in most of the things that we put out on all of our platforms, but the things that I managed pretty much primarily were our email program, our social accounts, and anything digital organizing. So I was the main contact for our organizing department and our 4 state offices, also including our political team. The internet moments that I remember the most were a lot of the viral pop culture remarks that we had on our Julián Castro Twitter account. One of my favorite tweets ever on our accounts was when Julián responded to Lizzo with "Truth Hurts" when she tweeted impeachment. That was just very fun for me. It was a great day. Almost as great as the Washington Post TikTok, the infamous collab with his twin brother, Congressman Julián Castro, and their little dance that they did in the airport.
Wait, stop, this doesn't make sense. Hold up, wait, who are you? I am you. I am me. No sir, you are you. Wait, I don't know. 2 is 2. I say you are you, but you say you're me.
But I think one of the most powerful moments on the campaign was during the June Democratic debate in 2019. He finished his closing remarks with "Adios, Trump."
On January 20th, 2021, we'll say adios to Donald Trump.
And that moment really solidified a piece of our messaging, our brand, and gave us the kind of energy that we needed to do one of our biggest and most successful digital fundraising pushes. That was also the day that we brought a lot of low-dollar donors into the fold. And from that point on, our campaign had one of the highest numbers of low-dollar donors across the board, and specifically from women and communities of color. Basically, our slogan. I think that the slogan was more than that. It was kind of the way that we carried ourselves across the campaign, everything from policy to operations and digital, and that was people first. So that's why we made a lot of intentional choices on our digital platforms to be super thoughtful about the people that we were talking to. And that included, being the first candidate to put pronouns in their bios, in their Twitter, their Instagram, Facebook bios, captioning all of our videos, using alt text, translating when necessary and when possible. Also just collecting and welcoming supporter-generated content. We had so much content from our supporters, from our influencers, from a lot of our organizational partners, and I think that kind of intentionality also came into play in terms of using platforms and choosing what kind of platforms. We were one of the first campaigns to be on TikTok.
I'm your type, right?
We really played up and experimented with new media. And when it came to light that the platform was not acting in the best interest of our supporters, people, and just the message and the values that we carried as a campaign, we chose to leave that platform behind. So it was about all decisions all around and across the board. One of the biggest strategies that we used across our digital program throughout the campaign was kind of more of a bigger picture idea. It was always important to us that we were harnessing the bravery that kind of comes along with being the only Latino presidential candidate running under an administration that has ignited its base with hateful rhetoric towards communities of color. So one of the biggest acts of digital bravery, in a sense, and one of our most successful, was the Ya Basta ad. Ya Basta translates to enough in English, and it was a small ad buy that we put on Fox News. It was supposed to air in the same New Jersey town as Trump's golf club while he was actually there. It was, simple in production, but direct to camera, addressing Donald Trump by name, calling on him to answer to the victims of racial injustice and gun violence.
President Trump, you referred to countries as shitholes. You urged American congresswomen to go back to where they came from. You called immigrants rapists. As we saw in El Paso, Americans were killed because you stoked the fire of racists. Innocent people were shot down because they looked different from you. Because they look like me. They look like my family. Words have consequences. Ya basta. I'm Julián Castro, and I approve this message.
It was probably one of the most powerful things that we could have done. It did nothing but further our message and kind of provide us with the momentum that we needed to achieve a lot of our goals, whether that was fundraising or organizing, voter outreach. It really propelled us to another level. And it also kept us going so that we could, achieve our ultimate goal, which was to continue sharing his voice and amplifying it in this race. So, getting into debates and forums and town halls, I think that kind of strong choice, definitely a very bold one, was, in making those kinds of decisions, was very impactful for our campaign. I think that we did a few things that worked that historically people just thought wouldn't. That first thing being new media, and for us that meant Snapchat and TikTok. These platforms are definitely unmatched in the ways that they give their users access to creative tools. So they were really fun because they gave us a lot of opportunities to show a different side of our campaign and get really fun and creative with the way that we were talking about these issues. But we also, while being on those platforms, were able to reach an audience that just was not present on a lot of other major platforms. So for us, it was really important to really share what we were doing with this kind of one-of-a-kind, younger, and very engaged type of voter that were on these platforms. And it turned out to be one of the most successful things because I think, as we learned kind of in the way that we were testing content, was people love to see our candidates' personality and glimpses of the campaign trail, and those platforms were great places to do that. TikToks have not been in campaigns before this year. So, and kind of using filters on Snapchat and a lot of swipe ups and polls and things like that. We had the highest amount of engagement on our new media platforms than all of our other platforms. Very quickly, overnight, we would get in the tens to 100,000s of views on things. So that was really great for us. And we were reaching a new community. I think another thing that we did that a lot of people don't really invest a lot of time in was we weren't afraid to create our own news. And we used our digital platforms to do that. There were a lot of things on the campaign trail that didn't get a lot of media coverage. There were a lot of events that were super important to us, that were super integral to the way that we were crafting our narratives around these really key issues and policy positions. For instance, when Secretary Castro visited the storm train tunnels in Las Vegas, he wasn't accompanied by a swarm of press or anything. Our communications director was with him and filmed it on his phone. And what we did was all we could do. We kind of acted like our in-house press of our own and shared that video on our own platforms, but also gave it to a lot of our influencers and our supporters to amplify too. So a lot of that buzz was what ultimately got that video picked up on a lot of major news outlets. So that was kind of one of the things that we had to do throughout the campaign. That was definitely not the only time. And it was something that really kept us going and kept us in the spotlight. So acting as our own in-house press was kind of a super important part of everything that we did. Remembering that there's so much to digital, that all digital platforms are also a place to organize. I think for us being a small place, there was a very strong relationship between political storytelling and digital organizing. So bringing attention to an issue, putting a story to it, and also finding an opportunity to make a call to action. I think that without organizing, we wouldn't have been able to achieve a lot of the goals of our campaign and our digital team. So if that was amplifying comms or fundraising, just general voter outreach, that just wouldn't have been possible. Everything that we did had a foundation in organizing, and that was something that was really special and showed me a different light to digital. Debate nights were really special just because they were huge moments for the campaign in general, but the way that we crafted our rapid response was super organizing based. It was really important that we took these TV debate moments and moved them online and created movements out of them. So there was a lot of prep that went into, prior to debates and throughout the debates, to creating kind of packages for supporters and influencers online to also amplify the messages. So this could be anything from talking points to social share graphics, hashtags, and kind of timing people to be online at the same time when these moments were happening. So there was a very big coordinated organizing structure to make sure that we were really capitalizing on these moments for us. And those continue to be, because we had built such a structure, those continue to be successful for us even when he wasn't on the debate stage. There were 2 debates where he was trending and he wasn't even on stage. So I think that that was one of the biggest things that I learned about and will continue to take with me wherever I go next. I wish that we had started our Team Julián Twitter account sooner. I think that place, it became such a home to so much of our campaign. It housed so much of everything that was going on. It uplifted a lot of supporter content. It really made a lot of people feel at home and included and a part of our campaign. And when they feel that way, they're the most engaged and the most mobilized. So that's when we saw a really big increase in the way that we were being engaged with. Another thing, it was something that we thought of, but we just definitely didn't have the capacity to do, was kind of developing resources within our campaign to learn more about our audiences. So for us, that meant language preferences, issues, and kind of using that information to engage with them more personally. We did have bilingual content, but we weren't able to build out complete bilingual programs. And I think that was something that we definitely wanted to achieve, but that's something that we just never did. I think it's really important that you take space and make space. I think making your own voice very clear and known is super important and very impactful, but also leaving space to uplift other voices in the field is also just as impactful. Movements are about doing things together. I think taking risks in investing time and energy into platforms and audiences and communities that are historically underappreciated is super important. This kind of dedication just strengthens your overall message even more and your candidate in the way that people view them. This is how you build coalitions and reach people that are often forgotten. just making sure you're keeping up the good work to keep your candidate and your campaign super accessible, really utilizing all the digital tools that you have. This can be anything from lives on platforms like Facebook Live, Twitter Live, Instagram Live, doing online Q&As, town halls, opening up your DMs, being really engaged with what people have to say. This is a time where also engagement should be more than just numbers. You should be measuring it in the way that you are making people feel. This is a time where we need to come together. We need to make sure that we keep asking ourselves questions when we're, promoting content. Are people feeling included? Do they feel reflected in these messages? Are you uplifting other people's voices while also amplifying your own? This kind of thoughtfulness is what we need right now, and also is how we should use the digital space to combat the current administration and, as Julián Castro would say, put people first again. I don't think we all saw that this would be something that we'd be doing during this campaign, but it was called the Castro Calleth On. We were going to reach this fundraising goal that we had set for ourselves by getting on the dialer, having all the staff, all of our supporters, everyone that's ever been involved with our campaign getting on our dialer and making phone calls to people across the country, asking them to help continue our campaign.
A big thank you, gracias, to all of the folks that we have across the country who are making phone calls today to help us meet the goal that we've set of raising $800,000 by the end of October. That means that we only have today and through the end of tomorrow, October 31st, to meet our $800,000 goal.
It would mimic a vintage call-a-thon, but it would all be live streamed. So we did it on very many platforms. We also included TV interview segments. So we asked a lot of local elected officials and organizers and activists from the San Antonio, Texas area to come in and, be interviewed by our political director, some of our comm staff, and then Secretary Castro was walking around with a mic and visiting all the rooms of our office as people called. I think that moment was really big for us digitally, because it was about making sure, production-wise, that we were putting out a very high-quality TV broadcast-esque call-a-thon interview series, fundraising special, while also working on the organizing side of things and making sure that people across the country were, set up with everything that they needed and were also able to efficiently achieve the goals that we were at the end of the day striving for.
Thanks to all of the support from our staff, all of our volunteers around the country at our Castro Calleth On yesterday. We hit our $100,000 Call-a-thon goal. Big celebration.
It was really special because so many people came together. It came together really nicely, and I always think back to that. And a lot of my fondest memories are, I was one of the camera women, so I followed him around, and I think that's one of my favorite moments of the campaign.